We're going to go ahead and get started. Wow, what a crowd. Welcome to the 2021 Volusia County Lincoln Day Dinner. I'm Tom Leake, Florida State Representative, House District 25, and I will be your Master of Ceremonies this evening. Thank you. My grandma's here, she appreciates that. Let's start, if we could, by getting all of our active duty members and veterans to please stand. Nice. Thank you for your service. Please remain standing. Would you please rise for the invocation given by my friend, the Honorable Chase Tremont, Port Orange City Council, and remain standing for the presentation of colors. Chase?
Thank you, Tom. As we go to the Lord in prayer, let's consider the reality that our hope for our country and our life is not in elected officials, it's not in a political party, it is not in a political or a policy that's implemented, but our hope for our lives and for our country is in the power of God working through the hearts of people. And that is a hope for our life, and that is the only hope for our country. So let's pray together. Father God, we love you so much, and we thank you for the ability to breathe the very breath of life that you breathed into us. Lord, first and foremost, we want to lift up our first family, our governor and his lovely wife, Lord, the health challenges that they're dealing with right now. Lord, we don't understand why things happen to people from time to time, but Lord, what we do during these moments is we rest in the promise that you've given us, the peace that passes all understanding. Lord, we're praying for a complete healing in her body, Lord. We're praying for that because we believe that you are able. You are the God of creation. You are the God of healing. You've healed the dead man to life. You've healed the leopard. You continue to heal the sick. And we're praying and believing for your ability and your power to bring full healing to her body. And Lord, we're also praying for the peace that passes all understanding and the wisdom to continue to flow through our great governor. Lord, we thank you for giving him to us. And Lord, may we be, as Republicans, as Americans, Lord, as human beings, may we be good stewards of the city upon a hill that you have blessed us with. Lord, we thank you for those that have served this country so that we may be here without fear tonight. Lord, we give this night to you. We love you and praise you in the matchless name of Jesus. Amen.
Thank you. Please remain standing for the presentation of colors. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Please welcome Marshall Bone, past recipient of the Kit Martin Award, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for the Star-Spangled Banner by Lori Partington, First Lady of Ormond Beach. Marshall?
Thank you. I'd like to thank Paul for the honor that he's given me in leading the pledge. I'd also like to remind all fellow veterans that some years back, our Congress passed a bill authorizing veterans to render the hand salute during our flag presentation and during the national anthem. People ask me, why do I salute in civilian clothes? I tell them this: I salute from my fellow veterans who no longer can. With that, please present arms. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Wonderful. Wow. What a crowd. I haven't seen this many Republicans turn out since, well, Tuesday in Virginia. In Florida, Republicans have a winning message, and we have a fearless leader in Governor Ron DeSantis. I'm not sure if you heard, but there are now more registered Republicans in Florida than registered Democrats. In fact, 10 years ago, after Barack Obama won Florida, Democrats outnumbered Republicans by nearly 700,000 voters. In 10 short years, Republicans have overcome that deficit and now outnumber Democrats, and that's because of you. Give yourself a round. The Republican Party works because of your work. The Republican Party succeeds because you succeed. And the Republican Party will continue to win because you won't let us fail. Thank you. Thank you. We've got a great slate of speakers tonight, so sit back and enjoy the show. We are honored tonight to be joined by guests from around the state, including friends from, as I call your county, if you're here from an REC or Republican club outside of Volusia County, please stand. So we have friends here from Brevard, Flagler County, Lake County. You may want to hold your applause, there's a lot. Leon County, Sarasota County, Seminole County, St. Johns County, Orange County, Indian River, there we go. Broward, Miami-Dade, and of course, the Republican Party of the state of Florida, the RPOF. Thank you all. Ladies and gentlemen, please allow me to introduce Volusia Republican Party Chairman Paul Deering. Hold a second. Edit. Edit. We have an edit. Edit on the fly. It's because we're good that way. Let me start by recognizing my good friend. We have a special guest and a man I know well. I've had the pleasure of knowing Joe Gruters from the RPOF of Florida since 2016. Joe, thank you for coming. Now, we are very lucky in Volusia County because not only is one of the most prominent members of our county here, but he's also one of the most prominent Republicans in the state of Florida. And so please join me in recognizing Maury Hosseini. Maury.
Wow. Hello, Republicans. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am so pleased to be here this evening to welcome our governor, and as I'm sure all of you are. So you see, before I introduce our governor, I've been thinking about what an honor it is to do this, but yet I could be in trouble. He doesn't like to be recognized. He doesn't like compliment. Actually, you see sometimes he rolls his eyes and he says, get on with this, because he's all about business. He wants to take care of Floridian. So I have to come up with another way to talk about him. So what is it that liberals don't like? What is it they don't like? Governor DeSantis believes in the Constitution of the United States of America. As simple as it gets. He took an oath not to mess around with our Constitution. It should never be a question or an obstacle, but somehow it is for the liberals. So the liberals think the First Amendment is only good if you agree with them. If you agree with them, you have a freedom of speech. If you don't, you're the worst person in planet Earth. Our governor is wickedly smart. He's way too educated, and that's a problem. Not only is he an Ivy League from Yale as an undergraduate, but his law degree from Harvard, where they told him, when you go to law school at Harvard, you don't take a job. So the first semester, he didn't take a job. After a couple of weeks, he said, I need to get a job. So not only he went to school, but he put himself through school and got a job. So, what's the problem? What's the problem with our governor always doing his homework? He's always so prepared for every challenge. For every challenge. Just think about it. I was just watching Virginia talking to suburban women, Democrats. They said this is the first time they voted for Republican. Do you know why? Because they said the government were trying to control their children. Well, guess what? This governor, I know this for a fact, always says the parents know how to deal with their children. And the parents can decide for their children, not the government. The other problem they have, that his wife is as intelligent and committed not only to our governor, but to our state. God bless Casey DeSantis. So the other problem they have is Governor DeSantis wants to defend and protect the people of Florida, our children, their parents, their grandparents, all of our people. Governor DeSantis is not afraid of the media. They can't bully him. Have you seen him in action? Unbelievable. All of these are really problem for the liberals. And it makes me very proud, honored to introduce him tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you the governor of great state of Florida, Governor Ron DeSantis. Let's give him a round of applause. Let's welcome him.
Well, good evening to you. I'm so happy to be here, and I am super proud to be the governor of the freest state in these United States. There's a lot of things I'm proud about Florida for, but I must say Florida's blessed to have the best first lady in all of the country, my wife Casey. I want to thank you for your thoughts and your prayers. It's not an easy thing to do, but I have faith in God, I have faith in her, and I can tell you she's going to be back better than ever. When I got elected governor, there were about 300,000 more Democrats registered in the state of Florida than Republicans. And as was mentioned, I am proud to be able to stand here before you tonight and say, for the first time in the history of the state of Florida, we have more registered Republicans and registered Democrats, and we're not looking back. Just wait till you see what it'll be a year from now. And it's taken a lot of hard work. I was here 2012 when we were trying to flip Volusia red. Back then, Volusia used to be a blue state. Within like the last 20 years, it was a blue state, or a blue county, excuse me. And even when Republicans would win Florida, sometimes they'd lose Volusia. And then we won it in 2012, and 14, and 16, and 18. And now, the Democrats have no chance in Volusia County. It's a red county. And there's so many people that worked hard to do that, and I've seen many of you here who've been doing this, I know, for over a decade, and I've worked hard. I've dedicated millions of dollars to the registration effort, and I'm happy to do that. And you can't get where we did without that, but I tell you, you can work as hard as you want, you can pour money into it. People only register when they believe that they want to be Republicans. And the reason they're registering is because they see we're the party that is standing to protect their freedoms, their jobs, their livelihoods, and that's why they want to be Republicans now. And people are moving from all over. Republicans across the country are moving. You know, I think we would have won. Virginia was great, but I think we would have won New Jersey's race. But so many Republicans in New Jersey moved down here to Florida, so they lose Republicans. But there's a reason why people look to Florida for freedom. For the last year and a half, Florida has stood strong against entrenched bureaucrats, against the very partisan and dishonest corporate media, to keep Florida open, to protect people's right to work, people's right to operate their business, and making sure that all of our kids could go to school in person. We stood virtually alone in this country last year doing that, and our state is better for it. And I can tell you this, as long as I'm governor, we will never let the state of Florida descend into a Faucian dystopia in which our freedoms are curtailed and in which our lives are ruined. In Florida, we choose freedom over Fauciism. And I'll be having another announcement about this tomorrow, but I called a special session of the Florida legislature because no cop, no firefighter, no nurse, no anybody in the state of Florida should lose their job due to these jabs. It's your decision. And we want to respect people's personal decisions. We want to protect their jobs. And so that means we're going to have the legislature come in. We're going to make sure that we're protecting folks, protecting everybody. You're not going to be able to be fired in the state of Florida because of the jabs. I mean, just think about what they're doing. You have nurses that have been working this whole time. Many of them have had COVID and recovered. And yes, the CDC doesn't recognize that you have immunity once you recover, but science tells us you have immunity when you recover. And yet, they ignore that. And so they have all these nurses and cops and everybody that's been working hard for so long. If there's ever anyone they have to deal with, they dealt with COVID positive people for a year and a half. And now you're going to give them their walking papers. We are not going to let people be treated that way in the state of Florida. So we're going to do the session and we're going to make sure we protect people. And oh, by the way, that is just on its own. That doesn't even count the federal government. That's what we want for the state. But we will also be making sure that we stand strong against Joe Biden's unconstitutional mandates. He does not have the authority to do this, and we're not going to sit idly by and let him do this. I mean, first of all, it's just a basic matter of freedom. Should you be required to submit to these jabs just for the privilege of earning a living? That's not what freedom's all about. So it's wrong for freedom. It's also wrong for just a practical reason. If only 1% of truckers and nurses and key people in these key sectors lose their jobs, our economy, the supply chain problem, all this stuff is going to be exacerbated. And it's going to be a disaster. And you know what? It's going to be a disaster if Biden keeps doing this because people have had enough. They're standing up to him. Yeah, we're standing up to him in Florida, but people who are working, they are standing up and they're saying no. So that's another thing. And then what's really most important, the medical freedom, the ability to make decisions, very important. But there are so many other freedoms that are at stake with this because when you throw the Constitution off a cliff, when you say we're no longer a government of laws, but simply a government of one bureaucracy that could issue 500 pages to try to remake our economy, that puts all of our freedoms in jeopardy. So I'm standing for the Constitution, I'm standing for the rule of law, and we're going to beat Biden. I guarantee you that. And you know, Biden doesn't like that. He loves to criticize the state of Florida. He's obsessed with criticizing me over really things that he shouldn't be concerned about. And, you know, I kind of take it as a compliment because he realizes that, you know, we're eating his lunch down here in Florida and he doesn't like it. But I also think to myself, if he spent a quarter of the time focusing on his job as commander-in-chief and not worrying about Florida, we would have 13 service members in Afghanistan that would still be alive today. And this is a guy, mind you, he ran for president demagoguing Trump on COVID. He said Trump was the reason for COVID and that when he was president, he would shut down the virus. And yet, unfortunately, tragically, you've had more Americans die under Biden's administration than under Donald Trump. And so Biden lied to the country. First of all, Florida, we have the lowest COVID in the United States for like 3 weeks. The media doesn't want to tell you that. They don't want to tell you that. You see it surging in Democrat states, and they're very quiet. They only want to talk about it if they can blame a Republican governor or if they could have blamed Trump. That's the only reason they want to talk about it. But I can tell you this, Biden tried to take our medications, and I made sure people got the medications they needed in Florida. And I probably had a half dozen people come up to me tonight thanking me for getting the monoclonal antibodies. I was the only governor in the country to make it a priority, and the result is we kept tens of thousands of people out of the hospital, and we saved thousands of lives by making sure that people knew about this treatment and had access to early treatment. And if you look at where we are now, we're at pandemic lows for people that are hospitalized and daily hospital admissions. We've never been this low since the very beginning of COVID. And that's because we follow science and actually try to help people. So I think when you look at all the things that are going on with our state, I mean, really, people look to us for leadership. People want to get here. I've been talk to people from all around the country, and many of them say, if I could get to Florida tomorrow, I would do it, and they would want to do it. And I think there's reasons for that. I don't think it's just because we have low taxes, although I'm very happy we have the lowest per capita tax burden in the United States. I'm very happy about that, and I'm proud about that. But I think it's more than just that. If you look in Florida, the closest state to us in terms of population is the state of New York. We got about 3 million more people in the state of Florida than the state of New York. And yet, even though New York has 3 million fewer people than we do, their budget is over twice the size of the budget of the state of Florida. But do they have better infrastructure than us? Roads, bridges? Of course not. Do they have better education? We're number 3 in the nation now by Education Week for K-12 achievement, and we have the number 1 public university system in the entire United States. Thank you, Maury. If you look at the September jobs report, the state by state hasn't come out for October yet, but in September, the United States reported an additional 194,000 jobs created nationwide. The state of Florida alone accounted for 84,500 of those jobs created. In August of 21, the last month we have the full figures, our hotel revenues were up 11% compared to August of 2019 before COVID even hit, while the rest of the country was down 5% over those. People know if they come to Florida, they're going to be able to enjoy themselves. They're not going to be harassed by people about masks or any of that stuff. They're going to be able to enjoy themselves, and they're going to be able to make their own decisions. And as a result, people thought that our tourism would never recover. And in fact, in many parts of the state, it's really never been better. It's booming, and we're really proud of that. But it's because of freedom. If we had had vaccine passports in Florida, you think people want to come and cough up their medical papers to be able to go out to dinner? I don't think so. That wouldn't have happened. So we're happy that we banned vaccine passports in Florida. I'm proud to be the first governor in Florida history to sign legislation banning sanctuary cities in the state of Florida. We're fighting Biden at the border. I had Florida law enforcement down there for 2 months helping Texas. Now we're working on the state because they're dumping people here. We're going to go after these contractors who are being hired to fly people in. And we're suing Biden against his catch and release policy. And we're going to win. And let me just say this. If the Brandon administration If they take your tax dollars and give $450,000 to people that came across illegally, they are going to have hell to pay, and we're going to make them pay. When I became governor, see, part of, I think, leadership is there's things that happen that just can't be foreseen. You got to react to that and do the best you can. But there are certain things that if you look and you look ahead, you can kind of see, okay, this could be trouble on the horizon. Is there something we can do now so that it doesn't get to a crisis point? And for me, one of the things that I did when I came in is on day one, was concerned about election integrity. One of the first things I did as governor of Florida was accept the resignation of Brenda Snipes from Broward County, Supervisor of Elections. We removed the Supervisor of Elections from Palm Beach County because I said and pledged to the people that a generation of botched elections in this state was enough, and we weren't going to let it happen again. So we ended up, and then when COVID hit, you didn't see me changing the rules. We weren't doing ballot harvesting and sending out all these ballots to dead people and people in other states like they were doing in some of these other states. We just followed the law, followed the rules. The result was, on election night, we counted 11 million ballots, 99% by midnight on election night. Many other places took them weeks to count much fewer ballots. So we were proud of that, and I think because we did what we did was one of the reasons why it worked out much better. But I also understand, and I understood, that there were a lot of problems in the rest of the country. I don't want that coming here. So I'm proud to say a few months ago I was able to sign legislation banning ballot harvesting in the state of Florida, prohibiting unsolicited mail ballots just being sent out to every Tom, Dick, and Harry under the sun. And probably most important, we banned Zuckerbucks in the state of Florida. You know, Zuckerberg from Facebook, he poured $420 million into, quote, nonprofits. And these nonprofits would actually go in and commandeer local election offices. They'd pump them with millions of dollars. They'd basically take it over. They'd stock it with partisan activists. And they would use that, basically the machinery of the election, they would use that for partisan purposes. And that had a huge impact in places like Georgia and some of these other states. And so in the state of Florida, we're not going to let our elections be hijacked by a left-wing tech mogul. That is not happening here. We're going to make sure we do it right. And we're proud of that, but I also understand there's more that you need to do. So yes, it's fine to ban ballot harvesting, but you know, when we banned it, you know, they made it a misdemeanor. We're going to make ballot harvesting a felony in the state of Florida. We're going to do that this session. We also understand that when there's irregularities that happen and citizens report it to the elections office, they're not prosecutors. They're not able to really hold anyone accountable. So we're going to create the first of its kind in the country. We're creating a separate election crimes unit at the state level. We're going to have investigators. We're going to have sworn law enforcement. And we're going to have the Attorney General's office prosecute people if they're ballot harvesting or if they vote illegally. You know, you're not allowed in Florida under our Constitution. You got to be a citizen to vote. And yet they have people who aren't citizens who will register to vote. That's a crime. You need to be held accountable. So we have accountability now. If we can get this done, that's going to be very, very important. And we're also going to make sure that they clean the voting rolls because they're supposed to do it already, but there's no time limit where they actually have to do it. We're enforcing time limits. You clean your rolls, and then if you don't, you know, we're going to come in and make sure that we straighten it out. So these are things that are important. We could very easily say don't do anything, but we're going to do more. So we've done more on election integrity than any state in the entire country, and I'm proud of that. I think back to the summer of 2020, and as soon as I started to see unrest break out in American cities, I said, that is not happening in Florida. I immediately called out the National Guard and said, we're going to back the law enforcement, and you're not taking over any cities in this state. And we were successful. But I also knew that wasn't enough. And so I signed months ago the strongest anti-rioting pro-law enforcement legislation anywhere in the country. We say really two things. One, if you riot, if you loot, if you engage in mob violence, it's not going to be like Portland, where they get you, take your mugshot, slap you on the wrist, and put you right back on the street to do it again. No, in Florida, if you riot, if you loot, if you engage in mob violence, you're not getting a slap on the wrist. You are getting the inside of a jail cell. We also said in that legislation, we are not going to let any local government in the state of Florida defund the police. If you do it, we're putting that money right back in there. And in fact, not only did we not defund police in Florida, we funded and then some. I was able to secure $1,000 bonuses for all police, fire, and first responders. But we also understand there's needs, law enforcement has needs, there's availability. It's not actually, I mean, the way they've been treated around the country, it's not a great thing for a lot of people to want to do right now, unfortunately, because they get treated so poorly in Florida. We've really changed that. They know they're going to have support here. And so we have an opportunity with all these other places in Seattle and Minneapolis, New York, everywhere in between, treating these people so poorly. Morale is so low. We're going to be offering, once we get this through the legislature, any out-of-state law enforcement that moves here and they're qualified, we're doing a $5,000 signing bonus because we support what they're doing. And we're going to make Florida the #1 state for law enforcement. We probably already are, but there will be no doubt once we get through with doing that. And I think it's very important. And here's the thing. They wanted to defund police. The media supported all the stuff that was going on. And many of these municipalities cut funding for police. And what do you think happened? You've seen huge increases in crime. Some of these cities are no longer livable. Heck, Soros elects some of these prosecutors in like San Francisco. They don't even prosecute a lot of the crimes. You can just go into a store, fill your knapsack up at Target, and walk right out. They don't even prosecute you for shoplifting. And so all that does is create a culture of law breaking, and it's going to continue to put people's lives at risk. So in Florida, we're not doing that at all. We believe in law and order. We believe safe communities are important, and we are backing the people that wear the uniform to help make our safe communities a reality. We also have to be honest about what's going on around us. And the fact of the matter is, we have a society that's driven by a lot of technology. You have a lot of social media, but a lot of this is in the hands of just a handful of effectively monopolistic companies. And they are using their power to try to silence people who express views that they disagree with. If you dissent from the Biden regime, you could get censored or deplatformed. If you tell the truth about people like Fauci, you can get censored or deplatformed. Any time you speak out and you're viewed as a threat to the regime, they will be watching you. And you can't have a free society if people aren't able to speak their mind. They cannot control the speech in this country, and if we leave it to them, they're going to shut all of us up before too long. And so I'm proud to say that the state of Florida was the first state to fight back against big tech. We want to give you the ability, if you're censored or if you're deplatformed, we want to give you the ability to sue big tech because they're violating your rights. Because yes, they hold themselves up to be open forums, and the federal government gives them liability protection. You can't sue them because they get liability protection because they say, hey, we're not publishers. It's an open forum. We don't adjudicate what's on there. And yet they turn around and they selectively enforce rules, the rules they have against viewpoints they don't like. So if you're conservative or you're talking about things like natural immunity or things that cuts against the narrative, you're going to find yourself under the censor's thumb. And so that's a fraud on the public because they're making billions of dollars by having you sign up on their systems and then them taking your data and selling it to every advertiser under the sun. So they sued us on this. We're going to have it in the 11th Circuit. I think we're going to be successful, and we'll make sure we tighten up whatever we need to in the next legislative session. But here's the bottom line. You can't let the speech in this country be controlled by 6 oligarchs in Silicon Valley. That's not going to end well for our country. It's not going to end well for conservatives. And part of the reason it's been so much worse with this, because honestly, when we were here 10 years ago, when we were working and to try to beat Obama, 2012, all that, actually tech was open. They weren't censoring then. And Trump used tech very successfully to get elected in 2016. And so something's changed in the last 5 or 6 years. And what they used to do was give us an ability to communicate. And for conservatives, one of the best things about that was we could go around the old legacy biased media. You didn't have to worry about what the New York Times wrote or some of these failed outlets because you could actually speak the truth. Now what they're doing when they're censoring us, they're also elevating these same failed outlets that we don't trust and that don't tell the truth. And so it's worse than even just censoring conservatives. They're helping the corporate press, and they're elevating them so that the corporate press in this country control the narrative. I can tell you this. The corporate press in this country is a disaster. They lie. They're dishonest. They do partisan narratives. They do not do the facts. We've seen it in a number of different things. Now we see it even more with what's happening with Durham indicting these people over the collusion conspiracy. That was driven for 2 years by corporate press, by these handful of outlets, and they ran with it and they ran with it and they ran with it. And they knew from the very beginning, they knew what they were doing was false. They knew what they were saying was a lie, but they did not accept the results of the 2016 election, and their goal was to drive Donald Trump out of office. And so they lied to you, they lied to me, and they lied to everybody in this country. And now that we know it was all a fraud, actually I knew from the beginning, I was one of the few who would say that, and many Republicans bought the collusion hoax at first. And just so you know, I was in Congress, a lot of these guys wanted to investigate, and I knew that it was BS, but nevertheless. But have they ever apologized for doing this? Have they ever admitted that they were wrong? Have they ever said, maybe we should have done this a little bit different? No. They just go on to the next target and they try to smear whoever they can. And if you speak out, they're going to come and they're going to attack you. Here's the thing, though. People don't put up with their crap anymore. We know they're lying. All of our friends and neighbors know they lie. So all they're doing is playing to a specific base, and they tried this in Virginia, and the public rejected it. So the public doesn't buy their nonsense anymore, and we need to make sure that we have Republicans that get elected that are not scared of these people, that will stand up to them, and that will fight back. If you look at all this stuff, and I think back to 2012, I was running for Congress down here, and basically the reason I was running is to stop Barack Obama. I even wrote a book which about a dozen people read, probably all in this room. And actually I signed a couple copies today. They sell for a lot more today than they did in 2012, by the way. But I wrote a book saying that what Obama and his folks were doing was totally inconsistent with how the country was founded. It was not consistent with our constitutional principles. And I stand by that. And those were good fights. Those were important fights. But I must say, I look back at that time and then compare it to what we're facing now. And it seems even quaint in comparison. Because I think the threats we face now are much more pervasive. And I think the left in this country is much more aggressive than they have ever been. And I think their friends in the corporate press lie more than they ever have. And so you have a situation where they have 50 senators, 5-vote majority in the House. If they just had a few more seats in each chamber, what was their actual agenda. They wanted to pack the Supreme Court. They wanted to make D.C. a state so you'd have 2 permanent Democrat left-wing senators. They wanted to abolish the Electoral College so California could elect the president. And they wanted to federalize all these fraudulent voting practices like ballot harvesting and overrule our laws in places like Florida that require ID to vote. That is not an agenda that the average American family is sitting at the dinner table saying, man, I just wish they would pack the Supreme Court, or I just wish they would make D.C. a state. No, there's no normal family that is talking about that. They're talking about gas prices. They're talking about inflation. They're talking about potentially losing their job because of Biden's mandate. Those are the things that people care about. This was not because folks wanted this. This was because they want to make all of us and the rest of the conservatives in America effectively second-class citizens. They want to lock us out from being able to exercise political power so that they have basically a permanent majority for a generation. And if they had that, they would absolutely destroy this country. But that's what's at stake here. You also look at how they've weaponized the bureaucracy. We saw this actually a few years back when I was in Congress when the IRS was targeting conservative groups. That was a weaponized IRS that was going after the administration's political enemies. We see it more recently with the Attorney General of the United States sicking the FBI on parents who were attending school board meetings. That is weaponizing the bureaucracy. That is trying to intimidate parents who are speaking out against these bad policies and against their ideology, which they believe your kids are not your responsibility and you shouldn't have influence. They think the government should trump the parents. So they're threatened when these parents are upset about that. And then, sad to say, the law enforcement and the intelligence agencies, what they did with the Russia collusion fake conspiracy theory, they weaponized that and they tried to kneecap Donald Trump both before he became president and after he became president. So it's not just, hey, if they get in, they may raise your taxes or do something we don't like. They will actually turn the machinery of government against us. And so that's something that's very, very serious. And to top it off, they're motivated by a very destructive ideology, wokeness. And this wokeness, sometimes we'll call the Democrats, socialists, and I think wokeness is socialism, but I think it's much more than that. It's much more than just taxes and spending. Wokeism is really a form of cultural Marxism. They want to take away and tear apart the very fabrics of our society. That's why they don't want parents being involved in their kids' education. That's why they take down statues of Thomas Jefferson and Abraham Lincoln and remove Washington's name off school buildings, because they're trying to erase history and they want to be able to impose their ideology as the founding ideology of the country. And unfortunately, in this country right now, the bureaucracy, academia, big tech, corporate media, all in corporate America, these woke corporations, you have all of this that's infecting the commanding heights of society. Now, the good thing about it, we take on wokeness in Florida. And I've said in my state, you want to bring that here, you're going to run into a brick wall because we're not going to accept it. In fact, we in the state of Florida have already stood up to it in many significant ways, including by banning critical race theory in our K through 12 schools. We are not going to spend your tax dollars teaching our kids to hate our country and to hate each other. That is not going to happen in Florida. But we also actually saw it with, I signed a bill protecting women's sports in the state of Florida. And some people said, well, the NCAA won't do events in Florida if you do it or whatnot. And I said, you know what? I'm going to do what's right, and we'll live with the consequences, but we did it. We protected our girls, and the NCAA said, of course we're going to do events in Florida. Of course, who's not going to do an event in Florida? And then with the elections bill, remember when Georgia did their elections bill, they actually did it about a month or two before we did ours in Florida. there was huge controversy about it. Now, there was really nothing controversial, things like voter ID that should have been in there a long time ago. So it was really standard stuff. But the left went berserk. The corporate press went berserk. And then these corporations started parroting those bogus narratives and those bogus talking points. And they all came out and condemned the Georgia law. Major League Baseball even moved the All-Star game to Atlanta. Poetic justice, the Braves win in the World Series, though, I'll tell you that. And so we were watching this in Florida, and the bill we did was much stronger than Georgia. But you started to hear, some rumblings about what could happen. And, all I've said then, and I continue to say now, is for these businesses, it's mostly big corporations. And I said, look, as a CEO or something, you have the right to needle into this stuff. It's a free country. I mean, if you want to get involved in voter ID, you can do it. If you don't like what we're doing in school choice, or if you don't like what we're doing for highways, fine. But just understand, the minute you start sticking your nose in our business, I'm going to construe you as a political actor, not just a business anymore, and I'm fighting back against you. I'm not going to let you lie about our state. I'm not going to let you propagate fake narratives. I'm not going to let you get away with virtue signaling to the woke mob. If you do that, we're fighting back. And so really, I think some of them do it because they think that if they genuflect to the mob, then the mob will just leave them alone, which first of all is wrong. The minute you blink, they're coming back after you again and again and again. You got to tell them to pound sand. That's the only way you can really deal with these people. But they think that somehow it buys them a short-term reprieve, and so they think virtue signaling is cost-free. And in fact, in Florida, it's not going to be cost-free, because I'm sitting here on the other side and I'm fighting back against you. And the result is, I signed the election integrity bill. The media had a spasm. The left had a spasm. But the businesses didn't say anything, because I think that they understood, I'm not going to let you walk all over me. Not this governor. That is not happening. And so we're standing for truth, and we're going to make sure that we focus on standing up to these people. But the bottom line, though, is, this wokeness is out there in these commanding heights of our society. But I think what we've shown in Florida is it's a mile wide in these institutions, but it's only an inch deep in our country. Hardworking Americans up and down the country, Florida, they reject wokeness. And so if you stand up and you fight back against these people, you will win, because the people are with you. And that's what we have to get through the brains of everybody who's elected as a Republican. So yes, I think when you look at all that we're dealing with, you got to stand for the right things. You got to understand what our country's all about. You have to work hard, all that stuff for sure. But I think just believing the right things and telling people you're going to do the right things, that's not enough. In times like these, there is no substitute for courage. Courage to stand up against very hostile political forces. Courage to fight back against things like cancel culture. Courage to fight back against a dishonest corporate press. And courage to give a voice to those people that don't have a voice of their own. And so in Florida, I'm walking the line. I'm standing my ground. I am not backing down for a minute. We've accomplished an awful lot in this state, but I can tell you the best is yet to come, because I've only begun to fight. Thank you all. God bless you. Appreciate it. Let's win in 2022. I feel the red wave coming in 2022. I need you all to make it happen. God bless you all. Thank you.
Wow. Let's hear it one more time for our governor. Ladies and gentlemen, Congressman Mike Waltz is the first Green Beret to serve in Congress, is a Florida native, a combat decorated veteran, former White House and Pentagon advisor, small business owner, and proud father. Please join me in welcoming our Congressman Mike Waltz, and please see the big screens.
Congressman Mike Waltz here, and I'm proud to say the first Green Beret ever elected to Congress.
Let's bring in Congressman Michael Waltz, a member of the House Armed Services Committee.
Michael Waltz, who himself served in Afghanistan.
Now, Michael Waltz, former Green Beret and member of the Space Committee.
Florida Congressman who's leading this effort, Michael Waltz.
When I signed up to be a Green Beret, I was taught you bleed green. The only skin color you care about is camouflage. The fiction that Biden is selling is that we're just as safe. Terrorism that grows in Afghanistan will spread like a cancer. It won't stay there. It will follow us back. The worst foreign policy disaster in modern American history. We cannot abandon Americans. When future American soldiers have to go back in to deal with the problem, they're going to have to fight their way through our own equipment, our own damn equipment. People are dying, and you all need to do your jobs. Chinese Communist Party are not our friends.
This is a national security issue. The Chinese Communist Party is in a Cold War with the United States. They have been for some years, and America needs to wake up to that fact.
Hundreds of millions of dollars of U.S. taxpayer money that should be funding our advanced research, and it going right out the door to Beijing. I've introduced legislation to stop it. What we need to be focused on is getting more Americans into space. You can't be number one on Earth if you're number two in space.
Michael Waltz is one of the congressmen behind that resolution to censure the squad.
We've renamed them the Hamas Caucus. And as someone who has been shot at by terrorists, enough is enough. So they can throw out whatever rhetoric they want, but I'm talking about the actions that I have personally seen. We will fight as hard for you in Washington as we fought for you in combat. They want to take your money, take your freedom, put power in the hands of unelected bureaucrats. The left will run this nation. And I'll be damned if I'm going to let that happen over my dead body. You know, I am proud to stand before you as the first Green Beret elected to Congress. There's been 4 Navy SEALs, and I just tell them it takes 4 of them to equal one of us, and we call it a day, right? But I'm also very proud to stand before you as the only Republican in our House delegation that's been endorsed by Donald J. Trump. I just saw him Thursday night down in Mar-a-Lago with the, and if you haven't looked up the America First Policy Institute, it's essentially a think tank set up to further that America First agenda, that amazing agenda and policy that he put in place to make America great. And I told him I would be, along with the governor, would be speaking to you all tonight. He said to say hello. He loves Daytona. He said one of his most amazing memories as president was circling the track at the Daytona 500 in the Beast. We all remember that. And buzzing the track in Air Force One. And of course, I always ask him when I talk to him, 2024, Mr. President, come on, right? He said, oh, Mike, I can't do a terrible Trump impression. He said, oh, Michael, you know, I can't tell you that, but I can tell you it's going to be huge, huge. So he's doing great. He said to tell you hello. I've had some great news in the last several months that some of you know, but I want to make sure all of you know that I got married to the amazing Dr. Julia Neshawat, who herself is an Army veteran, has more combat tours than I do, and a Bronze Star. She's a toughie and spent all of 2020 as President Trump's Homeland Security Advisor. But the bigger news is that we're also expecting. We're expecting a baby boy. So she stayed home tonight, but I was joined by my amazing mother, Brenda Waltz. Love you, Mom. Thanks so much for coming. And if any of you, many of you know my mother, you know she's my rock. Worked 3 jobs as a night security guard, as a clerk in a drugstore, and a third job in Prudential up in Jacksonville as a claims clerk, and then eventually retired as an executive vice president. Took her 15 years to get through school, took me 4, we graduated the same time. But she truly lived the American dream and set that dream up for me. To be before you tonight as a United States Congressman. Thank you, Mom, I love you. So Joe Biden says we're back. He says America's back. Who knew that when he said that, what he really meant was we were back to 1979. I mean, we've gone back in time to the 70s. I mean, even just in the last 10 months, we've gone from energy independence to energy dependency, where he's asking OPEC to bail us out. We've gone from the border under control to the border out of control. We've gone from the Abraham Accords, a Middle East peace, 4 Middle East peace deals after a hiatus of 26 years. Now we've got rockets being fired at Hamas. And the biggest piece, as you just saw me on the floor of the House of Representatives, is that we've gone to a hostage crisis in Afghanistan, just like we had in 1979 in Iran. So who knew that we were going to get Jimmy Carter, but worse? But I have to tell you, folks, I'm up there in a different kind of front lines now. It's the front lines for the soul of this country. And it has never been under the kind of threats that it's under. And they are external. I'll talk to you about those in a second. But the biggest ones are internal. So if you think about how you fortify a house, right, against those external threats, I don't know, if I have it my way, I'd build a wall around it. Walls work. Pelosi hates them except when it's to protect her in the Capitol, right? So the internal threats, though, those are like termites eating us up and eating up the foundation. And I see it day in and day out, where the Democrats and the progressives want to they've convinced themselves, but they want to convince the country and the world that that flag is evil. That flag that I almost died for twice, and so many veterans that we had stand up earlier, put their lives on the line for, is misogynist, is racist, is colonialist, and doesn't deserve our love and respect and to be fought for. You know, the governor talked about critical race theory and banning it here in Florida. It's not just in our schools. It's now in our military. Who remembers General Milley, the chairman, and his blow up about wanting to understand his white rage? It was horrible. That whole speech was directed at me during a hearing, because after lying, and the Secretary of Defense said, CRT is not taught in our military, it's not part of our military, it's nowhere to be found, it's a made-up thing by Republicans. I said, oh, that's really interesting, and held up a seminar that's being taught at West Point right now, titled How to Deal with Your Whiteness and Your White Rage, at the United States Military Academy, to our future military leaders, taught by a woman, Dr. Carol Anderson, look her up, she's a gem, who says that the Republican Party platform is one of white supremacy, and that your white rage, in case you didn't know it, but according to her and what she's teaching our future military leaders, is caused by black advancement. I can tell you, having been in the foxhole, having been in more firefights than I care to count, there is nothing more destructive than that kind of divisiveness to unit morale and to the future of our United States military. Nothing more. The military that I grew up in, that General Adino grew up in, and that so many of you, the only skin color you've got is camouflage. You bleed green. And in that foxhole, nobody cares about black, white, or brown. They care about mission. They care about country. They care about defending their flag and their brothers and sisters of the left and right. Can you imagine a situation where I'm ordering Green Berets to charge a machine gun, which I've had to do, and the black one is saying, Well, is he telling me to do that because I'm black? And the white one is saying, well, maybe I'll go because of my white privilege and I feel guilty for it. I mean, it's nonsense, but it's dangerous and it's destructive. And I've introduced a bill, and we're going to get it through because I'm daring Democrats on the Armed Services Committee to vote against it. We're going to ban it in the United States military. It's banned, and in our military academies. Done. You know, we had our veterans stand up. I just want to take a moment. If you're a first responder, if you're a nurse, fireman, policeman, deputy, if you're a first responder, please stand up and be recognized. Thank you. You know, when I go overseas into combat and then come back, you know, I can mentally switch on. I know when I'm in danger, and then I switch off. But then I'm dependent, and my family and we all are dependent on you all. Well, our first responders can never switch off, ever. They're never off duty. And to hear our men and women in blue get vilified like they do by the left right now is disgusting. I want you all to hear from me loud and clear. I have your back, 100%. I have your back. We all have your back. And any politician who won't say that loud and proud, please fire them. Tell me we're going to get them. We're going to get rid of them. We're going to vote them out. It's amazing what the left are trying to do. They just introduced, look this one up, the Justice Act, led by the Squad and the Progressive Caucus. The Justice Act would defund ICE, would defund Border Patrol. Here's a kicker, would defund the entire federal prison system. Kid you not, and they're pushing it through the Judiciary Committee in the House of Representatives. Well, I just introduced a bill that is going to actually extend Border Patrol's their authorities. We're going to get them more military equipment. The left is trying to kill that program. I'm fighting for it because I don't like fair firefights when it comes to our men and women in blue and the bad guys. And when they're putting on that badge and they're standing between my family and our families and them, I want them to have all the equipment that they need. Here's the thing. The Coast Guard, the Border Patrol, they're only able to stop 10% of everything they see on the radar out there coming into Florida shores and coming into our shorelines. It's not just the southern border. It is a flood of human trafficking, of narcotics, of fentanyl. And any pipeline that can move that kind of stuff, can move terrorists, can move weapons of mass destruction. They are right now only able to stop 10%, and that's of what they see. We're going to get them more money, more funding, more equipment. The number one job of the federal government is to defend the United States of America at home and abroad. And we're going to keep fighting for it. So, yeah, the governor mentioned, the governor was talking about the IRS and weaponizing the IRS. This infrastructure, big air quotes on that bill that just passed, and I have yet to have been so disappointed. I'm so disappointed in those 13 Republicans that voted for this thing. It's like a gateway drug to socialism. They got, we got to grow a spine in this party, and we got to fight. And listen, in that bill, 85,000 new IRS agents at the hands of a weaponized IRS. 85,000. So an Army division is about 10,000. That's 8 divisions. 8.5 divisions of IRS that are now going to be coming into your lives with the powers that any transactions over 10,000, right? And how that works, that's cumulative over a year. Well, who doesn't have more than $10,000 moving in and out of their bank account? And certainly what business doesn't, they're coming after you. We've got to stop it. We're going to stop it in the Senate. And if Republicans won't stand up, we got to vote them out. I'm sorry, we got to vote them out. Here's one other piece, and here's one other piece in terms of these internals, and I just want to talk to you about China for a moment. We have been, the world just topped 5 million dead from this China virus. And I'm going to call it what it is. 5 million dead. The last 3 pandemics have come from China. The next one is going to come from China. The Chinese military is actively experimenting with biowarfare. They're building it into their campaign plan. Eventually, with gene crisping, they aim to be able to target specific ethnic groups and eventually even specific individuals. You could release a virus in a room like this, it wouldn't touch anybody but one person or one ethnic group or whoever they want's genetic code. It's scary, scary stuff. And guess what? It's being funded with our tax dollars. It's insane. So Pelosi set up a select committee on COVID. Do you know how many hearings they've done on the origins of COVID? 0. Not one. It's the height of irresponsibility. It's ridiculous. When we get the majority back, we're going to get to the bottom of it. We're going to figure out exactly how Fauci and crew are funding all of this because they're corrupt. And his buddies at EcoHealth Alliance essentially led the censorship effort that their buddies at Facebook then piled on top of. Enough is enough, folks. We can't stop the next pandemic if we don't understand how this one happened and how our medical community, the experts, so to speak, along with big tech, have corrupted the entire process. So, look, you heard me talking about what's going on in terms of the external threat of now terrorism on steroids again. Donald J. Trump and our amazing military that he unleashed defeated the ISIS caliphate, killed Baghdadi, took out Soleimani, and had al-Qaeda totally decimated and on their back foot. He had them all running scared. And if they're worried about where they're going to sleep at night because they're worried about my Green Berets or Navy SEALs or a missile, coming in to touch them on the forehead, then they can't plot and plan to attack us here at home. Well, now that's gone. The last couple of months have been some of the toughest of my life. Every morning, I'm waking up and our former allies, American citizens, those who stood and fought with us for our values and that flag, they're sending me videos of beheadings, of people being hunted down, Americans reaching out and saying, we've been left behind, we can't get across the border, we can't get out. The Biden administration, Tony Blinken, Biden, and all of them have bold-faced lied and abandoned Americans. It is the single biggest betrayal in American history. We just got an 80-year-old diabetic American couple across the border, I won't tell you which one, just 2 weeks ago. I'm working with a veterans group that is now self-funded, doing what the government should be doing, 9 flights of Americans and our allies, and it's about $1 million a flight. Thank God for these veterans groups who took matters in their own hands. They know what's right. They know what that flag stands for. They stood up when the Biden administration was failing because we never, ever, ever, ever leave Americans behind. It's un-American to leave our fellow citizens, and it's un-American to let terrorists dictate the terms. It's completely un-American. It's wrong. Well, now we're in a situation, it's going to be just like when the O'Biden crowd, right? It's the same people around Obama as Biden, so I just call them O'Biden crowd, yanked us out of Iraq too soon. Look, we all want these wars to end, but I want to fight them over there, not back here, and we got to do it the right way, right? He yanked us out of Iraq too soon. We got the ISIS caliphate just a few years later. They attacked us all over Europe, here in the United States, inspired jihadis all over the place. Well, that's all happening all over again, but this time it's going to be worse. It's going to be far worse, folks. I don't mean to make you want to go to the bar and drink, but we need to understand it and hear it. Because now we have no bases. As you heard me saying in that clip, We've got no local allies. They've been hunted down. They got $80 billion of the most sophisticated American equipment. They've got an international airport to fly people and terrorists anywhere they want. And Biden is on his way to recognizing the Taliban and unleashing billions of dollars in foreign currency that Al-Qaeda, ISIS, and all the rest are going to use. And they fully intend to attack us right back here at home. It's coming. And what has me so upset, as I said, is future American soldiers are going to have to deal with it. Future Gold Star families are going to get that knock on the door because of his incompetence. We already had 13 get that knock because of his incompetence. And this really hasn't made it out there. You know that suicide bomber that killed our brave Marines and soldier and sailor that were guarding an indefensible airport in the middle of 4 million people? That suicide bomber was released out of Bagram prison just a few weeks before. There is blood on Biden's hands, and I will, as long as I am sitting in this office, I will never, ever, ever forgive or forget. I will hold him accountable. He will pay. Let me just talk to you for a second about what I think is the most dangerous threat the United States has ever faced in its history, and that's the Chinese Communist Party. Folks, we have to wake up as a country. Their Navy is now bigger than ours, more ships than the United States Navy. They can concentrate all of theirs in one ocean. Ours is spread all over the world. They're building new ships at a rate of 5 to 1. Average age of theirs, 11 years. Average age of ours, over 25 years. Do you know how much money in this infrastructure package was out there for shipyards? Zero. Not a dime. We have 24. Four of them are over 100 years old. China is on track to have 1,000 shipyards. They control 90% of our rare earth minerals. We saw from COVID that things like gloves and masks and gowns can become a national security issue when our biggest adversary controls it all and threatens to choke it off. 90% of our cancer medication now made in China. The United States no longer makes penicillin. 85% of even rail cars made in China, not here in the United States. That missile that they just launched, that hypersonic missile, we can't defend against, folks. A normal ballistic missile flies into space, our satellites can see it, and we can track it as it comes down to the earth and shoot it down. This flies into space, ducks under our radars so that we can't see it, flies around our other radars, and falls to earth at Mach 5. And it's the culmination of 20 years of stealing their way to the top. They've stolen it through cyber. They're stealing it through our universities. Maury knows. They've infiltrated even the University of Florida. They took tough action and kicked out some of these researchers. And if they can't steal it through cyber, they can't steal it through our universities, they're buying it through buying up American companies that are bankrupt many times because of COVID. So think of the irony. They release this virus on the world. We've way overreacted in many ways. We're spending ourselves into oblivion. Those dollars that the federal government is printing is borrowed from China, right? So we've got the arsonists loaning us money, and then it's all going right back to them through Amazon and Walmart and everything else, right back to their manufacturing. So the arsonist is getting rich off of the fire that they set on the world. It's really, truly incredible. So here's my call to action. Well, before I tell you that, I just want to tell you one more quick story. And this is why this is truly a contest, life or death, between good and evil. You know, the Chinese Communist Party is coming out with its own version of the Bible. And we all know the story where Jesus is teaching in the temple. The Pharisees bring in a woman that they caught in adultery. And of course, they cite the law that she should be stoned. And they're trying to trick Jesus and set him into a trap. and say, well, what do you do? And of course he says, well, let any man here who doesn't have sin cast the first stone. And of course they were all sinners, and they all skulked out, and he was left alone with the woman and said, go forth and sin no more. And he forgave her. The Chinese version, all of that's the same until he's alone with the woman. And you know what, in their version, Jesus stones her. He kills her in the Chinese version. Because in their version, it doesn't matter who you are. The law, government, not God, government is sacrosanct. They are literally seeking to rewrite history, rewrite the Bible. And Z is talking about replacing the American dream with the China dream. Well, I'll be damned if I have my daughter, my future son, growing up in a world led by Chinese communists. Not gonna happen. And we, though, have to stand up. So here's my call to action. We are funding this military buildup. It is happening with our money. I got in a fight, this is why I love Donald Trump. I got in a fight with the board that oversees the military's 401k plan because its board made the decision to invest into Beijing. Think about that. Sailors are sending their money home for retirement into this 401k plan, and the board overseeing its investments, all Obama people, by the way, we're gonna invest it right back into Beijing. I called President Trump on a Sunday night, got him fired up. He said, Michael, that's bullshit. Literally, he said, that is bullshit. How do we stop it? We mapped it out. That Thursday, he had a cease and desist letter to that board that by Saturday, he had 4 new board members nominated to flip it and get rid of these Obama people that are selling out to China. God, I miss him. I really do. So we have to start acting with our wallets. I've already called my financial advisor and said, get me out of all of these companies. If it's invested into Beijing, I'm out. But the bigger call to action for all of you, if you pick something up and it says made in China, please put it down. Put it down. We could solve that supply chain crisis with those ships. We could solve it in 2 minutes. Make it in America. Make it here. And if we can't make it here, at least make it in a democracy that isn't going to hold it against us and try to choke it off and try to use it against us. So, look, I think we're in for a divorce. The Republican Party is in for a divorce with corporate America and with Wall Street. I am sick and tired, whether it is Nike, Coca-Cola, we can go down the list, Procter & Gamble, that wants to preach to us about corporate social justice, but then wants to turn a blind eye to freedom being stamped out in Hong Kong, to 1 million people in concentration camps, to the military buildup that's going on, to COVID. Are you kidding me? You want to lecture me about Georgia, but then you want to turn a blind eye to all of that because it's padding your bottom line and you refuse to make it right here in the United States? Enough is enough. And I would encourage you all, as you're making those decisions, that the left does this all the time. We've got to start boycotting in line with our values. And President Trump is launching an initiative through the American Foreign Policy Institute called the Boycott Institute. We all love Goya. I'll buy Goya all day long because there is a CEO who knows how to take a stand. They take us for granted, folks. They know we'll be there when it comes to tax policy, but then they can speak to their woke masses and try to have it both ways and lecture us on voting integrity, but then turn a blind eye to genocide. Enough is enough. I've also called for a boycott of the Genocide Olympics. It's coming up in February. Dictators love the Olympics. They love them. We saw what Hitler did after 1936. We saw what Putin did after 2014. He invaded Ukraine 2 months after the Sochi Olympics. And God help us if Taiwan falls after the Beijing Olympics, which is coming up just this February, where the entire world and all of these companies are going to turn a blind eye. Enough is enough. We've got to take a stand. We've got to realize they are in a cold war with us. They seek to defeat us and put us under their communist thumb. It's not going to happen. So here's the good news. Here's the good news. We live in the free state of Florida. We have the best governor in the state of Florida. You know, I followed his footsteps to be your congressman, and I also followed his footsteps. I married way, way up. Look, what is happening with registration and turning Florida red, thank you to everybody in this room. That has been years and years and years in the making. The other bit of good news is with redistricting, because people are voting with their feet. And so many in this room are re-registering them to vote here rather than Massachusetts or, you know, the communist state of California or wherever they're coming from, right? Is we're going to get a new seat here. We're going to get 2 more seats in Texas. We're getting a new seat in North Carolina. We're getting a new seat in Montana. Guess where they're all leaving from all of those other states. California is going to lose a seat in Congress for the first time in its history. That's how many people are losing there. And we are going to flip the House of Representatives, and we are going to fire Nancy Pelosi. She's gone. Please, 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 please. Governor DeSantis also talked about voting integrity. Let me tell you, what we are doing here in Florida is setting the standard for the country. The states have to do their job. Let me tell you what the answer is not. You do not want answers to fraud and voter integrity coming from Washington, D.C. The Constitution is explicit that is the job of the state legislators, and I'm looking at so many, that you have so many great state reps and state senators right here. That's where the rubber meets the road. Georgia's got to do its job, and they're doing it. Texas has got to do its job, and they're doing it. Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, the states are going to fix this. We are going to undo the unconstitutional, fraudulent rule breaking that the Democrats got away with in 2020 under the guise of COVID. It's all being undone. We are tightening that up. You do not want it happening. Pelosi is this close, and they haven't given up to getting HR1 and SR1 passed through the House and the Senate. They're still going after the filibuster. And she's been at it for a while. She's promoting this lie that HR1, which you know is their voting rights reform, which will basically nationalize ballot harvesting, put tax dollars into campaigns 6 to 1. For every dollar AOC raises, she gets 6 of your tax dollars, and on and on and on. They want the country voting like California and New York, where they have super majorities. Folks, if they get away with that, they will lock down power for a decade, if not ever. And it is the #1 job of all of us is to stop what she's trying to do and promote and help what our states are doing. And if the corporate America wants to try to take a stand, let's us take a stand and vote with our wallets. And vote with our wallets. Done. The last, hey, let's go. You're right. One more thing, when we do get the majority back, aside from the accountability on Afghanistan and those 13 brave souls that should be with us right now, should be with their families, and getting to the bottom of exactly what happened in that mass betrayal, I'm also going to get to the bottom of Hunter Biden and the Biden family's investments into China. Right now, as we speak, Hunter Biden is an equity holder in blacklisted Chinese companies. One of them is blacklisted because for stealing American nuclear warhead technology. And we have the son, and maybe the big man, invested in these Chinese firms. You've already seen the email releases where Hunter's complaining about having to pay all his dad's bills. It stinks, it's rotten, it's making America less safe. Can you imagine the son of a president in previous years being invested in Soviet companies and being completely compromise. So it's not just Hollywood, it's not just Wall Street, it's not just sports, it's the White House, folks. And when we get the majority back, I promise you, we're going to get to the bottom of it. And if his dad is involved, we're going to impeach him. We're going to impeach him. All right. I don't want to be between you and dessert and the bar and everything else. It's the honor of my life, folks, to represent you. There are days it ain't easy. It really isn't. There are days Afghanistan, I think, is easier than Washington, D.C. But this fight is worth having. And this isn't my first firefight. I promise you, I will fight as hard for you in Washington, D.C. every single day. For all of you, for all of those men and women that are out on that wall right now around the world to keep us safe, for all of you that wake up every morning and put on that badge or put on that belt and go stand between us and criminals who mean to do us harm. And most of all, for those, like on this bracelet that I wear, for one of my Green Berets that I lost, for all of them who can never make it home. God bless you. God bless you, and I will keep fighting as hard for you in Washington, D.C. as I did in combat. Hey, Tom. Tom, there you go, man. Hey, one more thing. Thank you. You all know, especially our veterans out there, you know these military challenge coins that generals and admirals give out for outstanding service. I made one for my office. It says, presented for outstanding servant leadership. It says that for a reason. I'm a Christian. I'm a proud Christian. Servant leadership is how Jesus walked this earth. He walked with strength, but he walked with humility. And so I want to give this to you, Tom, for all of your great work that you're doing in the House. But look, I'm also an Episcopalian, so it's a bottle opener. Put it on the bar. All right, man.
Wow. Look at that. Truly unexpected. Let's give another round of applause to Congressman Mike Waltz. I'm proud he's one of us. All right, folks, if you would please take a look at the big screens.
But first, I want to thank Chairman Deering and the entire Volusia County Republican Party for hosting this annual Lincoln Day dinner and inviting me. You've got obviously a great speaker with the governor. And I just wanted to take a brief moment, if I could, just to remind everybody of what the stakes are. Because it used to be that in American politics, it was a fight between Republicans and Democrats, the left and the right, but it's so much more now. Honestly, I think the dividing line in our politics today are between people who think this is a great country. It has some problems, but a great country that needs to be fixed, and people who think this is a terrible country that needs to be demolished and rebuilt into something completely different. And that's what we're fighting against. And that completely different means one thing: socialism. That's what they want to do. This Biden plan, it's not a $1.8 trillion or a $3.5 trillion plan. It's a plan to codify socialism. And look at the tactics that they're using. They use the tactics of dividing people against each other, constantly pitting Americans against each other. Second, they inject politics into everything. You can't go anywhere anymore that hasn't been politicized. And finally, if you dare to speak out, if you dare to oppose them, they try to destroy you. They persecute you. They censor you. They silence you. They come after your business. They come after your reputation. They may even come after your family to smear them too. These are the tactics of Marxists. This is the tactics that Marxism has used all over the world, and we're seeing implemented now. You know why? Because the overwhelming majority of Americans do not agree with their agenda. So they have to lie about what it is, and they have to intimidate people into silence. But we can stop it, not just with our words, but with our actions. What that means is we got to win the governor's race, right? We got to get Governor DeSantis reelected. Imagine what Florida would look like. Imagine what COVID would have been like if his opponent had been elected 4 years ago. It's unimaginable. We have to win those statewide offices as well. They're very important. We have to keep the state legislature in Republican hands. We have a chance to win back the House right here in Florida. If we pick up 3 seats here, we're in the majority in the U.S. House of Representatives, and we've got to win back the Senate. We're tied 50-50. And so to begin, it begins by keeping the seats we have now, like Florida's. That's why I'm going to need your help. Look, you guys have all been involved for a long time. If it wasn't for you, if it wasn't for Volusia County and the turn it's made over the last 2 cycles, Florida would look very different politically. So we're going to ask you to go out there and do it again. The numbers look good. They're trending in our direction as a party, but we've got to keep building on it. And so I want to thank you ahead of time because I know you're going to put in the work to get it done because it matters more than it ever has before. So thank you again. I'm sorry I'm not with you. I look forward to being with you very soon, but God bless all of you, and God bless our country, the United States of America.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Senator Rubio. You know, folks, you got to imagine how difficult it is to put on an event like this and to make this happen. And our person spearheading that is the chairman of the Volusia Republican Party, Paul Deering. Please welcome Paul Deering.
Thank you. We have a great team here, and let me just say this. This event didn't happen because of me. This event happened because there are literally dozens of men and women and even some teenagers that spent not just today, but many weeks and several months to be able to put this on and make sure that it's a success tonight. I thank you all for coming and being a part of it. I want to thank especially also our sponsors. The sponsors give us the opportunity to do the things we need to do to keep the Marxists away. We're doing that in Volusia County with your help, both our sponsors and those of you that roll up your sleeves and make sure that we have success. I want to say that once in your life, if you're lucky, you have the opportunity to be a Floridian when we change the color of our political beliefs from blue to red. And I want to say this tonight was part of that because, as our governor said, we are now a red state. That didn't happen overnight. That happened because a lot of you in this room have been doing this over months and years to make this happen. Volusia County turned red about 4.5 years ago under the leadership of the former chair in Volusia County, Tony Ledbetter, which many of you know. We build on the shoulders of giants like Tony. Tony didn't make everybody happy, but you knew where he stood. Just to quote Pat Rice in the News Journal, and I don't do that very often. Let me just say that we here in Volusia County have been very lucky to be a part of this movement. The governor set the pace for us. I mean, it's hard to top that pace that he set for us. He just touched on the things that we know in his speech tonight. There's so many more things that he's had an impact on that affect our lives and the lives of future Floridians coming here from other states, many of them Democrats. But they're not the Democrats that are running the Marxist party on the other side. They're the folks who really are patriots at heart. And they recognize as they come here and I want to say are being welcomed by Republicans, not to bring their politics with them, but certainly to be welcome here in Florida, in the free state of Florida that our governor has helped create. And we're very thankful for. Let me just say that didn't happen overnight, and it began several years ago when we started doing voter registration here. And part of that is the leadership of our state party. And our chairman, who's also a state senator, said we need to change the color of every place we can in Florida, especially the state. Volusia is a big part of that, and we've been doing that well here. But our state chairman, Joe Gruters, Joe, thank you for what you've done, your leadership to make Florida red, along with Christian Ziegler, who is the vice chair. And that's the Florida view. The Volusia view started, I want to say, back in 2016 with one of our own who got extremely involved, and her name is Marianne Pastilli. I know you're here. Marianne Pastilli, I won't say single-handedly because she built a team of individuals that have helped make Volusia red. If you look out tonight as you exit here, you'll see some of what they do. Voter registration. It's not just the voter registration, it's recruiting more volunteers. I have an hour a month I can give. If that fits you and you're not doing something now, please consider that as you exit tonight. There are a couple of other things real quickly. I did say our Lincoln Day Committee. Our co-chairs, Barbara Bonarigo and Debbie Phillips. Where are you? Please stand up. Debbie, Barbara, where are you? There you are. They've done a phenomenal job, and literally, as I mentioned, dozens and dozens of people that it takes to put this on, along with the folks here at the Ocean Center. They've done just a phenomenal job for us. I'd like to hope that you will pay attention, because we're building on this after our two great speakers. There are three more things that you want to take a look at very quickly, and it will go very quickly because we're looking to get you out of here. Thank you so much for coming. We appreciate you, and we look to have you more involved in the future. God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you. Where are Barbara and Debbie again? Great folks. Just from my perspective, you're unreasonably tall. Just going to let you know. Please join me. I'd like to ask Ambassador Stan Escudero, the United States Chairman Emeritus, REC VC, to come to the stage for a special announcement.
Thank you very much, Tom. Thank you, Tom, and I'll be brief, uncharacteristically so, ladies and gentlemen. We're very fortunate, all of us here tonight. We're very fortunate because in Washington we have a real conservative champion, a hero of the Afghan war representing us, in the form of Michael Waltz. And we're very fortunate because we live in Fortress, Florida, which is a bastion of freedom created for us to save us and protect us from the growing tyranny of the socialist Biden regime by Ron DeSantis, the greatest governor in the history of the United States. And I'm here to tell you tonight that for Volusia County, that is no accident. That is no accident. Because beginning in 2010, your Republican Party, that is you, we, all of us, we all set out to transform what had been a Democrat-dominated county ever since the Civil War into a solid red county, and we succeeded. Tonight, as I stand here and speak to you tonight, every member of the county council but one is a Republican. Every state representative who represents Volusia County or any part of Volusia County is a Republican. Volusia County voted for Senators Rubio and Scott when they ran. Michael Waltz, as I said, is our representative in Congress. And when Ron DeSantis was elected governor with only a 33,000 margin statewide of votes, Volusia County provided a margin of 29,000 of those votes. But today, the American Republic faces a powerful and determined internal threat to its very existence as a republic. Of course, I speak of the Biden regime. And we Volusia Republicans are called upon to do even more to place our party in a position to successfully defend our nation, its traditions, and its principles in 2022, 2024, and beyond. And your party must call upon your devotion to country, upon your energies, and yes, upon your financial resources to best build on our past successes. Among many other things, we need a permanent county party headquarters. Every year it becomes harder and harder to find a proper building for use as a headquarters and election center, and the costs of rental property are increasing exponentially year after year. Of course, the solution is to buy an existing building or buy land on which to construct a building, and with that in mind, your REC established a building fund several years ago. But while we have collected several tens of thousands of dollars, we're still nowhere near having enough to purchase a headquarters building. But there are over 1,000 of us here tonight. And outside in the hallway, there's a table where you can turn in pledge cards for donations. Or go to page 4 of your program, and there you'll find a page about the fund, which lists a website where you can sign up for regular monthly donations. Now, those of us who work on the building fund board, we're all volunteers. We don't get paid for anything. We don't get any expenses. Every penny donated to the fund goes to the fund, and only the fund. So please, each of you, visit the table before you leave tonight, or go to the website and pledge the most that you can to make your party even stronger. If everyone here could step up and donate only $10 a month, every month, only $10, imagine how soon we would be able to have the permanent headquarters that we so badly need. Now, I'm asking you to give, but who in the hell am I? I'm just another Republican. But it's your county, your state, and your country who are asking you. Because it's your county and your state and your country, all of you, all of the traditions that you revere, all of your children and your grandchildren who are at risk from the threats we face. There's a great task before us all, and much work to be done. So let's all donate and pull together to enable the party to best support our candidates in the future and turn back the leftist threat to our country's very survival. I thank you, and I thank you for your donations. Take care, Tom.
Thank you, Ambassador. And now we have a very, very special part of the agenda tonight. And I'm going to introduce my friend, former state representative, the man who I succeeded into House District 25, former mayor, former dentist, former everything, Fred Costello.
Thank you. We're number one. Let's hear it. Republicans are number one. I haven't heard you yell that yet. We have the freest state in the nation. Isn't that worth getting excited about? Why do you think that happens? It's because of the volunteers. It's because of all of you. It's because of the things that you have done to put legislators in, our governor, our member of Congress, our local leaders. It's you volunteers that have made this happen. We have this outstanding delegation, and what are we doing with it? We're helping our governor make Florida the #1 destination for people who love freedom. Why I talk about that is because the Kit Martin Achievement Award honors people that have done this for a lifetime. Many times they're unsung heroes. How many of you knew Dr. Bud Flucius? We just lost Bud. Was he 94, I think? He ran for Congress in the 70s when Republicans didn't have a chance, but he did it anyway. He's one of my mentors. We have Tony and Tony, we have Paul and Barbara, we have all these leaders. But I'm going to tell you about a leader that you all know her, but she's been unsung and behind the stage so long. It's my honor to help bring out Peggy Farmer. So Dr. Farmer, if you'll bring Peggy up. Come on up, Peggy. Let me tell you that Peggy Farmer was the wind beneath the wings of David Hood, Ed Kelly, and Fred Costello when we ran for mayor in Ormond Beach. She was the one that had the vision that we needed Ormond Beach to be something special. And she helped all of us gather together a team like she has done here. We had to gather a team that could make it happen, because alone you can't do anything. In addition to Peggy's involvement with a group of people who wanted to be mayor, we have a nickname for her husband. Ed Kelly reminded me of this. Now, I want you to look at this man here, because this is a team. He's been a professor, doctor, colonel, surgeon general, secretary, Department of Health, president of the Florida Medical Association, chairman of the Florida Board of Medicine, and his friends call him Mr. Peggy. Frank knows better than any of us what this young lady does. And she's only been married 48 years to Frank, so she's still a young lady. But I want to tell you one of the things that Jim Purdy, and there's some quotes in there, I hope you'll all read the program, but Jim reminded me that when he was her vice chairman, Peggy was so special that he said the only vice Peggy ever had was Jim Purdy, because he was her vice chairman. I talked to one of her special friends that used to call her the Pegster, and she called him the Jebster. And this is what Jeb Bush had to say about Peggy. Peggy Farmer is one of the most kind, thoughtful people I have ever met in politics. And that's absolutely true. So I'm going to close with this and then present the award. When I would walk in the room, anywhere, Peggy Farmer would see me and she'd come over to me and she would make me feel like I was the most important person in the room.
He was.
And she did that with everybody. And that's what's so special about Peggy Farmer, is it didn't matter who you are or what you did. If you had a shared vision with her and you wanted to help accomplish something, she wanted you to feel like you were the most important person in the room. And that's why Peggy, if you want to say anything, I want you to say it, but I know that Peggy thinks all of you are the most important people in this room, because you made Florida #1 in Republicans and the freest state in the nation. And Shining Star, Peggy Farmer, 2021, the Kit Martin Award, Lifetime Achievement, Republican Party, Volusia County GOP, presented by the REC. We thank you.
Oh, thank you so much.
Frank, come. This is a team.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you so much. Y'all, now I understand why my husband wouldn't let me see the program. I did not have a clue that this was going to happen, and I'm so honored. And when I was chairman of this party in Volusia County 25 years ago, I stood before the Lincoln Day dinner that we had, and you heard that Tom Leake had a page and a half of elected officials that are Republicans. I was lucky to have 10 to introduce. We just didn't have the party we have now. And so I started my journey in politics in 1987. My first campaign of helping someone was a neighbor of mine who he called and he said, he was a Florida Highway Patrolman. And he said, I'm thinking about running for sheriff. Do you think you could help me? Well, I didn't know the first thing about politics, and there were 7 people running. But I just want to tell you how much I learned working with Sheriff Bob Vogel. He was my first campaign, and he's here with us tonight, and I'm really proud of that. But my pride and joy were the mayors of Ormond, because I really feel like they shaped our community. And now we have a great opportunity for 2022. And I'm not going anywhere until we deliver Volusia County to our great governor, our great congressman, and all the shining stars out there of our Republican elected officials. Thank you so much. This means so much to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Peggy. Thank you for all that you've done for each one of us. All right, folks. You ready to go home? Thank you all for coming. I want to mention that Congressman Waltz has been generous enough to agree to sign some books outside in the lobby. Thank you all for being here. You make this event special, and you make this party special. Have a good night.